We will be joined momentarily by our fearless leader, the publisher of Inside Maryland Sports, Jeff Ehrman. He's got some stuff he's attending to. Could be good news. Hope he breaks it on the show, but I doubt it.
He won't. Never does.
It'll come in an article.
He's such a tease. Yeah, he's such a tease. He's always like, I gotta take this phone call. It's like, you gonna tell us what that is? No. Yeah. All right. Well, then pretend it's the dentist or something. Don't get me excited over nothing.
He might tell us later, but
yeah,
whatever.
He'll tell us off the air, which is doing nothing for you guys, but
yeah,
you know, one of the few perks of this job.
You struck Swope out in 1995?
I honestly don't know, but it was so long ago. I'm choosing to believe that happened. So we played against each other a lot. So Matt's a New Carrollton guy, and I grew up in Cottage City. And
real quick, Matt, for those people listening on the show, Matt Swope is the baseball head coach. He's our guest today. Maryland's baseball head coach in his first year with the program. You played against him in baseball, and your headline says struck Swope out once in 1995.
Yes.
So go ahead.
I'm quite confident that I actually did. But I don't have any evidence for that. But I also don't think anybody has any evidence that it didn't happen. So I'm just rolling with it.
You're rolling with it?
Yeah, because the backstory is basically Matt's a New Carrollton guy. I grew up in Cottage City in Hyattsville, and we basically played, youth baseball against each other forever, and then ended up going to Mathen together. We played on a couple like Babe Ruth All-Star teams together, and he was always the star, and I was always just like a pretty good player. But every once in a while, I got
my headline. I like my headline. Swope. There it is. I think mine's better. I think I won today. Oh, we just lost Jeff.
We're heading, but we're all completely 90s themed here today. That's good.
Yeah. Well, we just had Jeff, and I was gonna quickly remind him, hey, we're already live.
Yeah,
because I wasn't sure if he knew that, but we lost him, so I don't know what happened.
Jeff's technical issues is he's like a mystery and an enigma wrapped in a Rubik's cube.
It's part of the show. It's just part of the culture of the show.
You might actually think this is a running gag, but it's not. It's completely real.
It just happens. Well, it's live. If we weren't live, we would just wait till he gets on and then we'd start, and it'd be fine, and no one would ever know.
That's right. But we're loyal. We're loyal to our listeners. We know that you have been sitting by your computers and your phones, like waiting for the clock to tick 7:30 and expecting our beautiful faces to show up. So here we are. You're welcome. And, Jeff will figure his thing out when he figures it out. It's fine.
Jeff will figure his thing out. Here he comes again.
Well, maybe.
Well, we go. We're going to add him. Jeff, we're live. We're already live.
I'm aware. I appreciate the heads up, though.
Yeah. We told him you got a special phone call before the show, and you won't tell us who it is. Any hints? And not Bob Stone? I know that you're running gag. Any hints? Who was it?
No.
Player?
I'm just
coach?
Being a boomer with technology issues, basically.
No, we know why you dropped, but whatever. We already teased the phone call. Okay, whatever.
We got to work on our branding here, Jeff. What's up with the shiny Nike stuff hanging out?
It was just I just grabbed it, dude. I need to do some new IMS shirts. Actually, that reminds me.
It's been a minute.
It's been a while.
I still got mine upstairs, but it's I probably don't fit into it because I'm a fat ass now. But I still got it. Yeah, appreciate that.
Yeah.
What I missed
when I say how we were just kind of shooting the breeze a little bit. I noticed Paul's headline says he struck out Swope in 95. So we were kind of talking about that. We told everybody you had some kind of crazy phone call you had to get to, and we'll figure what that is later. We'll drag it out of you. But we hadn't really got into much yet. But we have a good guest, like we said, Matt Swope, the baseball head coach. They're off to a 2-1 start off the back of 3 straight NCAA tournaments. They won the regular season and postseason Big Ten last year.
No, 2 years ago.
I thought it was last year.
No, last year they struggled a bit. Yep.
Oh, is this his second year then?
Yep.
Oh, oops. Okay.
All right, we're off to a great start. You can tell how huge.
On the way before he joined us, right?
That's right.
Man, I did all this research. Okay.
You just missed a complete year, Lawrence. That's all right. That's all right.
I missed a year.
I mean, that's what we got wheels for. We got wheels to usually take care of this kind of non-rev stuff for us.
Yes.
Wheels doesn't do baseball, so we're gonna do the baseball today. And like I said, if nothing else, we'll just break down, and Maddie and I can talk about our years at Tamatha, which I'm sure everybody would love. For us to really dig deep into that.
Do not worry, folks. That will not. We will not allow that to happen. Don't worry.
It might just be funny baseball trip stories. Yeah, I mean, it would just be like fun party stories. We could do that.
What we got to do is just ask for an embarrassing story about Paul. That's what we got to ask Matt.
He's got nothing on me, man. He was too busy playing sports and being good at stuff. I was out on the party trail. That's how that turned out in high school.
All right. Well, maybe there's an embarrassing baseball story, like you tripped over the foul line or something.
He might have one of those. I've actually got a pretty good story about him, but I'm going to reserve that
until he gets on.
I don't want to get my guy in trouble, man. That's not cool.
Well,
we don't need to be digging too much into all that stuff.
The baseball team off to a 2-1 start. They're at the very beginning of their season. The team we're all here that we really care about is on a heater, and towards the end of their season, only 5 games to go. And man, do they have a shot at getting a really high seed. I think the latest projections are averaging around 5 now, 5 to 5.5.
Imagine someone telling you that 2 months ago.
I did say that 2 months ago.
Did you? Dig up
over and over again.
Larry always says like good things are going to happen, and like the one damn time it actually works out,
what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
You're always optimistic about this stuff.
In his defense, he's going against the odds there. It's not like he's playing the odds.
That is fair.
I'm going to go back and I'm going to find the clips of what we said about this team at the beginning of the year, and you're going to be embarrassed, and I'm going to take a victory lap.
I'm not going to be embarrassed at all if you go back to the beginning of the year. Beginning of the year, what I said was, I don't know what this team is going to be. Ask me in January, because I felt like it was going to take this team a long time to gel and find their roles and figure out how they were going to do the rotations, whether you could get Queen and Reese to play well together, whether you'd have to split them up with Kapari and Geronimo to kind of make it work with the floor spacing. And honestly, the only issue I had was that month after Christmas, or even 3 weeks after Christmas, where they looked really, really, really bad, and you kind of worried that the wheels were going to fall off a little bit. But after that, I mean, it's been a minute. I'm sure if we go back far enough, I'm sure that 2020 team that won a co-championship had a pretty good run in January and February in conference before they kind of tailed off a little bit at the end, and then COVID shut everything down. But I can't remember a Maryland team running off. What is this, 9 out of 11 right now? And with one of those.
The other team that did that was Turge's penultimate season, the one with Wiggins. They were kind of out of it, and then in February went on a tear.
Well, that's what I was talking about. That's was that the co-championship one, the Sticks one, or the
No, that was. I'm talking about. No, was that?
Yeah, that was the same year.
No, his penultimate year, the second to last year. Not the.
Oh, that was the year they beat UConn in the tournament, right?
I think so. Am I confused?
They
won a game. Yeah. I don't think those are the same years.
That team was super limited. He switched them to like a 5-out offense, and they did have Aaron Wiggins, who was becoming a star, but. And the other thing about Paul mentioned 9 out of 11. It's 9 out of 11, and the 2 losses are by 4 points, both decided in the final 30 seconds or so. Northwestern buzzer beater, and then the Ohio State comeback. So they're those 2 kind of semi-fluky losses away from 11-0 and 11 in a row. And then you look back, the other losses I think are by combined 19 points or something.
They're inches from being a top 10 team right now. Inches.
They should be a top 10 team. The law of averages, if it had played out, they'd be a top 10 team. Not that you're not going to hang a law of averages top 10 banner, but they are better, I think, clearly than number 20. We think. We don't know. Then again, who knows how good the Big Ten actually is?
It's more than just thinking. It's backed up by analytics as well, and eye test. Clearly, everyone. The people who follow the team all have been clamoring for better seeds than what the prognosticators are giving Maryland right now. Everyone, I don't think it's just. I think there's more to it than
I
just.
think that's the seed is starting to catch up though. Like 2 weeks ago or
Yeah, they
so,
are.
it was like they were like
They
a
are.
7 or 8 still, and it was like this is not a 7 or 8 seed. They were being under projected, underseeded, whatever, and starting to catch up now that they're up to 6 or 5, and they reel off a little streak here. Maybe just have one loss, no losses, whatever, even maybe 2 the rest of the way. Make a run in the Big Ten tournament. I don't know. I don't know how high they could go in the seeding. It'd be higher than they've been in a while, that's for sure. I mean, the last top 5 seed I think was 2015, 2016, probably.
Is this true here? From Chris L. says, Heat Check College Basketball has a report which shows that Willard's teams always underperform in January using a decade worth of data. I wonder if there's something weird about the way he runs his practices and how hard he drills them early versus late, where that kind of lull emotionally and physically happens in January. Do you think?
So why January? Why are we talking January? Is the question.
Well, it happened this year, like Paul just said, and so maybe and Chris L's saying that's standard for him. That'd be.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, if it's just January, not February, for example.
If it was at the end of the year, it would make sense.
Yeah.
January is just a random month.
Right. And it is a little hard for me to, I mean, January is also typically when you start conference season. So, like, obviously things are going to get tougher, even if you play a pretty good out-of-conference schedule. But it's hard for me to ding Willard too much for things that happened at Seton Hall. I mean, as you can see at the current state of that program, like, it's a mess. So if you want to feel better about Willard, don't just look at Maryland's record right now, but look at Seton Hall's record right now. So, it kind of is what it is. I'm open to him building his own legacy at Maryland. He's not going anywhere at this point. So, like, cool, whatever. Let's see what you can do. I think if you want to look at some real positives here, there was a list, I actually meant to pull this up earlier and I'm not going to be able to find it now, but some things that we had demanded kind of Willard coming into this season. You asked him to be able to, not only put together a roster, but to be able to do that the way that he feels like he can do that, which is coming out of the transfer portal. And he's been able to do that. He's been able to get a team to play together. He's been able to get those two bigs to be able to play together way more than I think any of us anticipated he would be able to. You've been able to get really hot in the middle of conference season against a lot of good conference opponents. You've been able to do that. Now it's the postseason, right? We're all sitting here waiting to see whether he can do it in the postseason. I think that's the one remaining thing. He was able to get Derek Queen. We demanded he needed to get Derek Queen. He did. Okay, you get all the credit for that. I've been a pretty hardcore hater on the guy these first couple of years because I just wasn't sure he was going to have the stuff. But I'm beginning to open up to the fact that he might have figured this out. Hat tip to that analytics guy who convinced him that 3-point shooters matter and, playing fast is great because not only do they have a better product this year, but they're winning with it. And, if he is going to be able to decide, okay, I'm only going to recruit 1 or 2 guys from high school every year and basically run through the portal, you have to say this year's been an unadulterated success with that philosophy. Now, replicating it's going to be a lot harder, I think, but so far, so good.
It will definitely be hard. And what we're seeing in both football and basketball are wild swings because of the portal stuff, because you just don't know when it's this entirely new collection of people. Sometimes they're home runs, sometimes they're strikeouts. And for example, in football, you've got what Indiana did, and you've got what Florida State did, and you've got what Arizona State did, and you've got what other people, right? Oklahoma State was predicted to win the Big 12 and went 3-9. All those, I know that's football, but same thing for basketball. I think it's just going to be like that until player contracts come in place and teams stay together for a while again.
Yeah, definitely. But he nailed the portal last year. The year before he didn't do enough. I think he was not big into the idea of NIL and the portal that much when he arrived, which seems like a lifetime ago. based on how much he switched it up to now, where he's barely even messing with high school recruits very much. But he just nailed every step last year, with those guys, and should have 2 of them back. He's going to have to do it again this year. Although I will say, I think that, at least for one of those spots, I'm hearing that they've been working some overseas connections, a Euro guy or two, which makes sense to me because I've been wondering this whole time, you're losing Derek Queen and Julian Reese. How are you not at least taking one high school big man, at least as an insurance policy? You can't go in the portal needing 2 starting big men or 2 really good big men. But
can I offer a possible reason why?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to spend big money on an interior player, which they're going to, would you rather do it with someone who's been in college for 2 or 3 years you already know, or would you rather do it with a freshman who you don't really know?
Oh, yeah. No, that's clearly the reasoning
right
about it. If you get a proven commodity, I mean, look how a lot of these freshmen this year, the Big Ten is loaded with freshmen. It's very strange. Last year might have been the worst year for freshmen in the Big Ten in decades. I mean, I'm not to dump on him, but we all know how much Deshaun Harris-Smith struggled last year. He made the all Big Ten freshman team. That's how slim it was. And now you have several projected lottery picks this year, Derek Queen included. But still, you can't beat that experience, can't be proven commodities. They're going to be more expensive, so he's going to have to budget well and figure things out there, especially when you have, as I've written, Gillespie and Rice will be back, and they're going to expect, pretty good pay raises, which they've absolutely earned, arguably clearly one of the Big Ten's best starting backcourts, which a lot of people who don't pay close attention probably hadn't heard of either guy, maybe Rice, and we're concerned about that. So yeah, he's going to have to ace the portal again, but he's got some added credibility from doing it last year.
Yeah, I think the issue with the difference between going in the portal versus high school, when it comes to kind of numbers more than anything, right? I mean, if you're talking about going and getting 2 proven quality bigs out of the portal, sure, there's more kids in the portal now than there were before the floodgates opened a couple of years ago, but that's asking a lot. I mean, you are really asking a lot.
It costs you $1.5 million easily right there. For those
right.
2.
Just to be able to find guys that have some level of, and again, proven is by the eye of the beholder, right? Do we know that a starting power forward from Belmont is going to come here and be able to do something that Gillespie's been doing? We don't know. I think, especially with bigs, it's probably a tougher question than with guards. With guards, feels like with guards, the game translates a little bit better across the levels of college basketball. With bigs, not so much. So it could be a little bit daunting. I don't want to get too far deep into next year's roster, not only because we don't really know what we're talking about, because there might be 5 guys from this team that are on it, but it's also a little bit scary. And I don't want to talk about scary things. I want to talk about fun things. This team is fun. This team is really fun. I mean, it's just a really fun team to watch. And it was a little bit funny in the Iowa game. So they got 2 wins this week. Neither of them were particularly close or games that you really felt like they were going to lose. But at the same time, they were losing at halftime to Iowa, but it also felt like they were just like, yeah, just go run with them. Just go run with them for a half. Let them shoot their shot. And in the second half, we're going to start playing defense, and that's going to be it. And boy, did they do that. I think Iowa scored 20 points in the second half. I've been a
while since they've had a team that can just play with their food for a half in conference, half decent team, and just run them off the court with ease in the second half, like name your score kind of game.
It's really wild. And now that's not a good Iowa team by any chance. This is not your typical Fran team that's particularly good. But, I mean, when they turn it on, they're for real. And I've been a little bit worried about the defense. I know the analytics numbers still show them as like about a top 20 defensive team across the board. It does feel like, at least in the last few weeks, they've kind of depended more on the outscoring of opponents as opposed to really playing that kind of tough-nosed defense that you expect from a Kevin Willard team. So I would like to see those 2 things combine a little bit more over 40 minutes as opposed to kind of turning it on and off when they do. But it's really hard to complain too much about success at this point. We'll see what happens when they have Michigan State showing up here and they have to go to a house of horrors like Penn State, just to see whether they can keep this run up as they really get into the Big
Those
Ten
last
tournament.
3 games, Michigan State, at Michigan, and at Penn State, the last 3 are just
tricky.
Yeah.
And that'll really tell you whether this is for real or not. I mean, it would be pretty silly to expect them to win all of those games, but
they're not the last 3. Sorry, there's USC, and then the next 3 after that, and then they finish with Northwestern, right? I think I got that backwards.
Yes, you are right. You're right. There's 3 in
I feel
between.
like the X factor is Sel Miguel. Like everybody else, you have a good idea what you're going to get from them.
Man,
USB's had a few clunkers. Queen at midseason had some middling performances, but Julian Reese is extremely consistent, playing the best basketball of his career. You know, you have a pretty good idea what you get. Miguel, though, like first half Miguel the other day was a disaster. Driving to the hoop, throwing up airball layups, you know, forcing it. And that kind of showed that, to me, that was kind of a thumbnail of how he's the X factor. When he's hitting threes, they are extremely tough to beat. He's shooting, I think, something like 43, 44% in conference play from 3. So it feels to me like he's kind of the biggest variable.
He throws up some crazy stuff that goes in too. It's like no. Oh, okay, cool.
Well, how about that? How about that late runner at Nebraska? I mean, did anybody feel like that was going in?
Tough.
I mean, that was a tough shot, and he just wanted the ball, and he was like, "I'm making this basket, get out of the way." I mean, that was a great end of game. I mean, going to Nebraska doesn't sound like a particularly tough game most of the time, but when they're on. Fred Hoiberg's a really good coach. They've got some talent over there.
It's loud quick there for a school that's never won an NCAA tournament game. Gets really loud.
Well, talk about that's a fan base that shows up. I mean, they show up for everything. I mean, they put 100,000 people out in the football stadium for a volleyball game. Like those people got nothing else to do. They are showing up and they're being loud, and that is the highlight of their week. Yeah. And that's a tough place to play. I mean, they've only lost 2 or 3 games there all season, I think. And Maryland at the end of that game, it was really tight. And just Gillespie and Miguel, they just said, okay, we're just going to make all these baskets and y'all can go home. And again,
well, there.
Go ahead there.
You know what? I totally forgot. You know what I did? I went back and I made a clip of our Nebraska predictions. You guys want to hear that since we're talking about it?
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Here we go.
To get over the hump. I think Ohio State was a fluke letdown. If you take that out of the equation, you know, they're on a huge streak right now. Nebraska's a little dangerous. I don't know how you lose 6 in a row and then win 4 in a row. That's crazy, but I think they win a close one.
Paul?
I feel good about the team this year. I don't feel good about tomorrow, and I think they lose that one.
I feel beaten down by these road games because it happened again. But I'm just going to stay positive and say this is the time. This is the one they figure out, and they win by the solid 7 to 8 point margin. That's what I'm going to say.
That's why he clipped it. That's why he clipped it.
That's exactly why I clipped it.
It's completely self-serving.
Yes.
No, it's also me serving. It's just not you serving.
No. I do not feel bad one bit about calling that loss. That is a house of horrors, man.
I mean, that's been a loss in recent years, that game.
Well, yeah. And that's why you feel like this year might be different. I mean, because they really, at the end of that game, part of what they suffered from in Ohio State is they just could not get a stop. I mean, Thornton was just going nuts, and they couldn't stop him at all. In this game, they got close. They got up a bucket or 2 at the end. They were making tough buckets in the end, but they kept letting Nebraska score 2 until they finally got a stop. Now, that stop was Bryce Williams having a wide open 3 from the top of the paint and missing it somehow. But we're not going to complain. It's fine. They got it done, and they made a stop on the possession after that, which was actually legit. But I do worry about the defense a little bit at the end of these close games, because when you look at those road games where they've struggled, it hasn't been an issue of them not being able to make a bucket they need at the end. It's being able to make the stop that they need at the end. So if you want to look at one factor that might tell the difference as to how they're going to endure these kind of single elimination tournament games that are coming up in conference and the NCAAs, that really seems like it to me. If they're going to be in these close games, we talked about their terrible luck factor for Ken Pom. Luck just means you either win close games or you lose close games. And Maryland doesn't win close games for the most part. So if they're going to be in close games, I'm looking to the defense. They've got to be able to make stops. I know they'll make buckets when they need them. I don't know that they're going to make stops when they need them.
We got Matt Swope coming up in just over 4 minutes. We've had a comment in the chat, and we talked about how the fact that maybe we wanted to talk about this a little bit. Student attendance has been horrible for all games now.
I don't think all games.
From Chris L.
Haven't they?
Demonette says, yep, why won't the students show up? Not all games, but yeah. So go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's been some games where they had it rocking, but it has, this is the ever-present debate that pops up every 3 or 4 times a season at Maryland. Pro sports team, this and that, or is it? A lot of people say that admission standards have gotten so high, and there's such a focus on engineering and all these out-of-state students. They don't, care as much about sport. And I'm sure there's something to that also. But to me, the biggest thing is the same as it's been. You've lost multiple generations of fans at this point. Like I always say, one Sweet 16 in 20 years. Very few of those magical experiences that make a kid or a college kid or even an alumni or an alum say, that's amazing, I'm buying season tickets, I'm all in. Those moments have been so few and far between that I think there's just been a perpetual erosion during the past couple decades, and there's going to be a lag time for, they're not just going to react immediately and fill the place. But that said, that is pretty lame to have it half empty or whatever it was against Iowa is pretty bad. I mean, you can blame it on marketing. Maybe they need to come up with some better solutions there, but I think they do a good job with that. And you can't just give away T-shirts and bribe them to show up every time. But this is the kind of season, though, where if you break through in the next 6 weeks, then moving forward, it's going to get, we're not going to be talking about this as much because it'll be ingrained in the fans.
I think it's a bit of a tough subject because, first of all, you have to factor in the fact that Maryland has a giant break between their semesters that basically encompasses the entire month of January, which is really tough and makes the television look really bad. I mean, it looks like nobody's there because you've got so few students who are on campus at that time. And then you've got, with Christmas holidays and all this other stuff, you don't have the adults showing up either. So it's just not a great look. And then when they get back, you've got other factors involved. I think Jeff's exactly right. If you're a student who's been on campus, you've endured COVID, you've had to deal with all this kind of other stuff. If
you're a senior right now or a senior, if you're a senior, you've been through 2 losing seasons, the only 2 losing seasons of the past 30 years. You've been through both of them.
Yep. And that's coming off of COVID. That's coming off of the coaching change. Frankly, a change that was somewhat uninspired given, I think, what people consider the level of the program at this point. And Willard had to prove it a little bit. And I think they're in the process of doing that right now. But I guess I can understand if it's just a situation where you've got a number of students who just aren't into it the way that their predecessors might have been. And I think, like Jeff says, the more you win, the more they come back. The students I never worry about. What I do worry about is the adults. I worry about the paying customers. I worry about selling out those 200 seats. I worry about making sure that you don't, every time there's a game at 7 o'clock, there's this, I can't get around the Beltway in time. Every time there's a game at 9 o'clock, it says, I'm going to, I get home too late. I got to work early in the morning. There's always an excuse for the adults. I'm more concerned about that than I am about the students. The students will be there. If you win, kids will be there.
And with that, we are going to welcome to the show our guest for today.
Look at this guy
of Maryland Terrapins baseball and longtime best buddy of Paul Douglas.
Don't accuse him of that.
Paul's been bragging about how good of friends you are. And in fact, I don't know, can you see his headline? He says he struck Swope out once in 1995. Is that true? Did that happen?
Do you see me laughing? I can't stop chuckling because that's the only thing I saw when I signed on into the portal type thing. So
see, that was my thought. I thought 30 years has passed, and nobody can really prove or disprove it. So I'm just going to choose to believe that happened.
I think it probably could have happened for Team Glendale at Beckett Field in New Carrollton, Maryland.
Yeah, that's right. We've come a long way from the streets of New Carrollton, right?
It could have happened. But thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we're very happy to have you. And we're very supportive of the non-rev sports, and we love seeing them do well. We're not just we're Maryland fans, right? We're Terrapin fans of all the sports, and so we love having you guys supporting you guys as well. And you guys have just started off to a 2-1 start so far. What do you think of the makeup of the team so far? Are there any positives, any things to work on so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always tough at the beginning, right? You're trying to get a feel for the team. You know, we went down to South Carolina. It's at a complex it's kind of like 3 or 4 combined fields. It's a little weird. It has a little spring training vibe. So I was happy with the first weekend. A lot of new faces, a lot of new players. So I was really pleased with how the pitching staff did. They threw really well down there. Had some timely hitting. Some of the transfers we got, the 3, 4, 5, didn't really do that well. But, again, like I said, the backdrop and the fields and all that, it's just, I think you're seeing early on in college baseball, you'll see some upsets. You'll see some guys getting their feet underneath of them. And, happy with the first weekend. We had to cancel yesterday. Just like I said, the real feel has to be over 30 in the Big Ten to play. So it's been cold the last few days. So excited to get back on the bus tomorrow and get down and play at Western Carolina this weekend.
Matt, obviously Maryland baseball has kind of improved its lot in life during the past, 10 years or so. You've been involved in a lot of that, a lot more success, more guys going to the big leagues. How much has it changed when you talk to recruits now, their perception of you as opposed to however many years back before this?
Yeah, I think we've carved the niche. That's the biggest thing, right? Like when I first came back in August of 2012 with Coach Sheff and Rob Vaughn and Jimmy Bellinger and those guys, like you're just trying to scrape talent. And I think Eric Bakich did a good job when he first came back, and we kind of inherited the Brandon Lyles and the Lamont Wades, and he did a really good job recruiting and getting us started. Back then we're just trying to scrape talent together till now, where I think, there's a standard amongst the fans and people that, we go out there and expect to win every single game. So I think really changing that tide, you go all the way back 20 years ago when I played with 4 scholarships and bottom of the barrel in the ACC, like people don't really realize how far we've come. And that's why I said, I'll always say when I went to coach that regional, coach third base in 22, I was literally in tears just to see how far we've come growing up in New Carrollton, with Paul being a local guy going to DeMatha High School. Both my parents went to Maryland, how much that just means to me and how far we've actually come. Most people don't truly realize that. So we've come a long way from the 20 years ago to the success we've had in the last 10 years, where now the standard is we don't talk about Big Ten championships. We don't talk about trying to win a national championship. The standard is to win every single game. And I think what we're trying to do now is just break down those gates and get to Omaha for the first time.
Matthew, I have 2 questions. My first one is DeMatha a great high school or the greatest high school?
The greatest. There's no other answer for it. It really shaped who I am as a person, wearing a tie, wearing a blazer. The religious aspect of it shaped who I am. I think you walk through those halls as a freshman and you're seeing those trophy cases and you just understand that there's a level of greatness in these halls. There's a level of greatness and a standard that's inherently there to go to DeMatha Catholic High School. And, it meant a lot to me personally, and was proud to represent the institution.
Thank you. Tradition is tradition here. And secondly, so what's it like now? You've been all up the ranks as a player at Maryland, hitting coach, base coach, all the way up to now head coach. Not only you've taken on having to take on a new roster and recruit high school players, but now you've got the portal and the NIL stuff. So how have you been able to take on all of that role? Have you been able to delegate certain things, or are you just kind of diving in and just be like, man, I'm going to go get some talent. We're going to worry about the rest later.
I'm into it all. I mean, I was so thankful for Coach Sheff when he came back in 2012. They kind of let me do the budget, the fundraising, the uniforms, all the stuff behind the scenes that I feel like head coaches need to learn that they never do. And it's really the hardest part than them to transition into a head coach. I was lucky enough for him at 32 years old when I came back to Maryland to delegate that stuff to me. So I'm fully integrated into that now. I spent a lot of time with donors, had a couple donor meetings this morning. I go out all summer, help raise for NIL. I'll help the institution any way I can, whether it's an introduction to JP Finley or Kevin Sheehan or someone like that. That's kind of in y'all's business, that what you do with that. And I'm a company guy, man. I love Maryland through and through with my heart. I've had a lot of opportunities to go other places, but I've lived in DC, I've lived in PG County, I live in Annapolis now. Just kind of fully integrated in whatever is needed, and it's my favorite part. Is to be truly authentic and say, hey, like, I went to these classes, I went to Tall's Theater. I grew up, with Brian Cummings stealing his wristbands after a Maryland football game when he was a quarterback growing up, right? Sneaking into the same guy at Cole Fieldhouse that all I needed to do was have a little piece of paper that snuck me in Cole Fieldhouse with the same usher. I was doing those things. So it's easy for me in this kind of journey that I'm on being a coach now, is kind of doing whatever I got to do. But I'm fully integrated in all this. And I think it gives me an advantage with recruits because they see how genuine and authentic it is. And I'm not maybe looking for the next stop in college sports now, which is very transient. So just blessed to be here and just having a great time.
Matt, Baseball America did not project Maryland to make it to the tournament this year. They projected Maryland to finish 8th in the Big Ten. What are they missing about the team which led them to make such an incorrect prediction?
Well, listen, I mean, I think, I don't know if any of those years that we won the Big Ten, we were picked to win it. And the publications, they got to do their thing. But, the great part about Maryland and Maryland baseball is that our mantra is anybody, anywhere, anytime. We stole it from the Commanders. And you know what you're getting at Maryland. Matt Shaw, Nick LaRusso, Luke Schleiger, none of those guys were ranked in the top 1,000 out of high school. We developed those guys. Nobody knew who Lamont Wade was or Brandon Lau. So we're just, continuing to put our head down and work really hard and be relentless for 27 outs. And, when people come play us here or we go somewhere else, they know what they're getting from us. So, those things will be, kind of expressed throughout the chats and we'll bring it up a little bit. But it's interesting, like when you recruit the right kids and you get, the leadership council and the kids that we have in one common goal, that doesn't even really faze them. They just kind of chuckle and laugh. And if they do that, you kind of know you're on the right path. It probably frustrates me or has a little bit more chip on the coach's shoulder, but the kids kind of just kind of fluff it off. So, you're kind of getting the right guys when you have that.
Mentioning those guys you mentioned who came in as non-blue chip prospects and are now playing in the majors, for the fans, who are a couple of young guys who you could see taking that same path down the road?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most obvious is Chris Akopian, right? They're like he's actually more highly touted. I have his dad, Derek Akopian, who was a Triple Crown winner in the ACC in 1992 and coached me with the Bethesda Big Train, actually, in a summer team up the road, a summer college league. So I think Chris is probably the most highly touted guy. Was originally committed to Wake, but wanted to play with his brother, Eddie. And what a great story that is. So Chris is an obvious one that's kind of on the radar. We have some talented freshmen that are in the class. Jake Yeager is a Maryland kid from Spalding. We were able to keep home. So excited to see what he does in his first start next week, probably at Delaware on Tuesday. But we've done a good job, keeping we're always going to start here first. We got Austin Weiss coming in next year. Really highly touted left-handed pitcher, could be a top 3 rounder at a high school from Georgetown Prep. I'm really, really excited about him coming in. So, we'll always try to build that recruiting, prowess in the DMV first, and then kind of go up the Northeast from there. So got some exciting young players. There's some good players in Chris's class as well. Braden Martin, St. John's kid that we have, and then Colin Gibbs is a freshman this year, also out of St. John's. So we'll keep plucking the WCAC and these local guys and build out from there.
Hey, Matt, so obviously the Hakopian brothers and Lambros, those are kind of the core of the team. Who are some guys you really need to step up this year if you want to get into the, really make some noise in the Big Ten, get in the tournament, try and get to Omaha? Who are those guys who kind of have been playing, been okay, but really need to step their game up this year and kind of take the next step?
Yeah, it's got to be the transfers. It's got to be the guys we hit 3, 4, 5 this weekend. It's got to be Hollis Porter, the big-time JUCO recruit we got out of Pearl River. As a Mississippi State kickback, hit 400 last year with 20 homers. Had a good game, on Sunday. I had 2 hits, had a homer on Saturday. So really need the production out of him in the middle. Got another transfer, Aiden Hill, who's a Maryland kid that I recruited at a high school that was at VCU on a regional team last year. He's hitting 5th or 6th. Need him to step up. And then Liam Wilson, who was a super highly touted guy out of Madison High School, and Pudge Gorman. in Northern Virginia. So we need those guys that, we brought them in to be tougher. We brought them in to kind of have that production. All those guys got a little bit of swing and miss, but if they can get to double-digit homers, we'll kind of trade some of that for the homers. So, they struggled a little bit the first 2 games, and, we'll chalk that up to the field, to the new team, whatever, but we definitely need them to step up if we're going to be that upper echelon type of team in the conference this season.
Can I jump on that for a second, Larry? Just are you seeing some of the same changes in college baseball that we're seeing in the pros in terms of, kind of focusing on like the old Earl Weaver 3-run homer kind of ways, like adjusting your swing angle, things like that? Because I know you're really into the analytics and kind of the mechanical issues in terms of hitting. Like, how are you teaching these guys? Are you seeing the same kind of trends that you're seeing in major leagues?
Yeah, definitely the same kind of trends. I think that permeates throughout youth baseball and high school baseball. Not the biggest fan of it all. So what we do at Maryland is I just published a book on it. It's called Motor Preferences. So it's something that we coach every individual differently, down to the personality types, what type of shoes they should wear, equipment, with their mechanics. We coach every single player differently. And that's kind of the niche we've created amongst college baseball and have that reputation. So we try to coach everybody differently. I'm not into the whole exit velocity and analytics that they're a tool, right? They're a tool to help. Everything helps as a tool, but we need to get back in sports, especially whether it's basketball or football or baseball or any sport, of not coaching everybody the same way. Everybody's different, and we need to coach them that way. So the trends are there, but I try to do my best to say, hey, my job as a coach is to make you your best coach. Development isn't you doing what I tell you to do. Your development, and you're going to be better by you becoming your own best coach. So that's how we coach these guys, to take ownership in their swing or what they're doing on the mound. And that's what you'll see with Matt Shaw when he presents himself in front of the Cubs or our pro guys. They should have an idea of owning what they do well. And that's kind of what we've always promoted and taught here at Maryland.
We got a good question from our chat from Michael Wheatley, watching live. He asked, just a curiosity, is Maryland getting a new ballpark or in talks about a new ballpark?
Yeah, so that's something I think I want to obviously build my legacy on, is like I'm going to do everything in my power for as long as I'm here to build a new stadium. It's something that's always been really important to me as a player. You guys, if I would welcome, or I invite you to please come see me at the new indoor. We're happy to take you around there and explain kind of what we've done and why we built it the way we did. That's the first step, right? Is having a resource for these kids that we're recruiting and say, hey, if we truly say that we're going to, coach you better than Vanderbilt or Clemson or these other places, we have to have some resources that match that. So the indoor was the very first step. To make sure that we have those resources for recruiting and our current players, and then from then on out, we need to build the stadium. It's something that needs to be done, but I realize that I'm going to have to help with that, and we're going to have to get people involved in that. So we did do a study, or not a study, but I did work with the architecture department about 7 or 8 years ago, and I spent a whole year working with 12 grad students, and we have a lot of money in renderings of a new stadium and different concepts and how that would work with the campus and all those different things. So have a ton of good ideas. And for me is just always like, how can we integrate the campus as much as possible? The cleanest sight lines, see into the stadium, not make it real stringent and you can't see from the outside. The more we can integrate the campus, the more we can integrate the community, the better it is. And we've hosted a regional, and I don't know if you guys attended that. It was electric. It was a party. It was just like what Maryland should be, exactly what I envisioned it being. So we're going to be gritty here, but I'm going to do everything I possibly can when I'm here to help raise the funds to do that and help the institution. But it's definitely something that if we're going to take that next step in the Big Ten and nationally and be respected, there's definitely need to be some improvements to the stadium.
Matt, along with obviously going to games, how can fans support the program with NIL or otherwise?
Yeah, I think we just need to be as transparent as possible with the fans and the people. And sometimes I feel like right now the fans are, either they don't understand NIL, they don't understand rev share, or they just go into the mold of like, hey, they want to see football or basketball good before they give. That's not the way it is anymore. And trust me, I'm a little bit more old school and in my mid 40s and understand that maybe back in the day that's what it was, but there's a baseline right now that we need to be supporting as fans. And I'm also a fan, of being a former player, being a person that went to Maryland, that I give as well, is like, there's just a baseline that we all as fans in the community with 400,000 alumni in the DMV, that there's a baseline that we need to give in order to compete. And it cannot be, hey, predicated on what's the success of basketball and football and these other sports. It can't be that. We need as a community to understand, hey, this is where we're at. We all need to give to support these programs, me included. I'm doing that. I'm still giving to the Terrapin Club as a head coach. And say, hey, we need to be at this baseline. So I challenge all those fans to, I'll be an open book and I'm giving as well, but we need that support. If you want to give the NIL, that's a way. If you still want to give to a scholarship or the scholarships for the players, there's a way to do that. There's all different ways that you can have connections. And what I feel like the best part about baseball is that you can literally come on the third base dugout. You can come talk to me. You can build a relationship with Matt Shaw, and he's in the big leagues 2 years later. So we have that opportunity to say, hey, whatever sport you really like and you want to get close to, there's an opportunity. But we need to, as fans, I implore and beg these fans to understand it's not 20 years ago. There's a baseline of how we need to compete. And right now, currently, we have the lowest budget in the Big Ten. So without that support, we're going to have to continue to do more with less. And you've had elite coaches in John Tillman and Sasho and Missy and Kathy. You've had these Hall of Fame type coaches that have been able to sustain that. But it's not as easy to do in football, basketball, and baseball and the larger sports, because you are in that pool where you're comparing to the others and you are competing versus the others. So I'm not necessarily recruiting against Michigan or Ohio State. I'm recruiting against UVA, Clemson, North Carolina, Vanderbilt, and the best baseball teams in the country. So, people need to understand that as well. So I just implore and just like, hey, I'm a former player. I'm a fan. I'm also an alumni, and I grew up in the DMV, and I'm supporting and ask for any help that we can get.
Yeah, Matt, we dug into the stuff on and off the field, and we've known each other a long time, and you live and breathe baseball in a way that is probably why you are where you are today. Just what was it like getting that phone call, man? That had to be really special for you, being a player, hits record holder. You still the hits record holder, or did somebody steal that from you at this point?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you still got that one. Still got that one. But you've been all the way from from fans to going to Tom Bradley's camp when we were kids and all that stuff, all the way through being a coach and now the head coach. What was that like, getting that call from Damon and heading over there and picking out a suit? Like, that had to be something special for you.
Well, it was stressful. I remember the morning, it was right the day after, a couple of days after we lost the regional, and it was frustrating itself. You guys remember the UConn play at first base. That was still trying to get over that one for sure.
It was bullshit is what it was.
Yeah. So
you don't have to say anything. I'm just saying it for you.
Yeah. They put in an extra base now for that rule and everything. So, but what's funny is that air conditioner was broken. I actually was on baby duty that morning, and I literally picked up the baby. I put on a suit and I took the baby to the next door neighbor, and I said, here. So I gave the baby to the next door neighbor. Katie and the other kids were gone. And, at that point, you're just like, hey, you kind of have an idea the previous year when Rob was interviewing at some other places and knew this may come about. But the best part about this is, I never had a vision or wanted to be the head coach. I just wanted to work at Maryland because I love this place so much. So I've turned down several Major League Baseball jobs in the dugout when I was an assistant, other things. It was never a goal to me. So for me to get that call, it was nice to going in there, and Damon was nice enough to say, hey, do you want this job? And it was a short interview, and it was seamless, and it was a dream come true, just because I've spent my whole life on these backfields in PG County. My dad was in Sigma Chi here. He's a significant SIG at University of Maryland, and I've been coming to campus since I was 2, 3, 4 years old. And I tell people all the time, this is a lifestyle. It's not a job. My best friend, Steve Suter, who does the radio, and a football player, and Todd Wyke and guys like that. So it was a dream come true. And there isn't a day that goes by that I'm thankful and just happy to be here.
Coach, we end every interview by playing fill in the blank. I'm going to ask you 5 rapid-fire questions. Say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
You got it.
Here we go. The best baseball player in Maryland history is?
Eric Milton.
Nice. College baseball will move to wooden bats in the year?
Never.
Okay. If the Big Ten expands again, your preference from a baseball perspective would be?
Who we're taking?
Yeah.
Florida State and Clemson.
Okay.
Bad.
Your Twitter X feed is nothing but posts about baseball, as Paul mentioned. So your other interests besides baseball include?
Washington Commanders.
Okay. Right. All right. Last one. The best hashtag to follow on Twitter X is? Hashtag Dirty Terps is where I was trying to lead you to.
There you go. You're good.
Yeah.
I thought you meant follow, but you did say hashtag. So, yeah, Dirty Terps. Dirty
Yes,
Terps, baby.
Hashtag Dirty Terps. He is at Matt Swope 19. And if you want to follow the team itself, it's at Terps Baseball. And there's one more thing we ask if everybody comes on the show, because you do us a favor and say, this is Matt Swope, and you're listening to IMS Radio.
This is Matt Swope, and you're listening to IMS Radio.
We got one more thing you need to say. We need to say, my name is Matt Swope, and Steve Suter is a tool.
My name is Matt Swope, and we used to do the Swope and Shooter show on ESPN 1300, and Steve Shooter carried the show.
Oh, nice.
I believe it. I believe that.
Steve's a friend of the show.
Yeah, Steve's good people, man. Hey, Matt, man, I just want to say I'm super proud of you, brother. I mean, like, nobody who saw us play back in the day would be shocked that you were an elite baseball player still doing it and coaching now, and then I'm just a miserable dude on the internet talking about it. But it's great to see you here, man. I know you love it, and we love having you. So we'll have you back soon, and go kick some ass this year.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks, Coach.
Thanks.
That was
Coach. That's cool, man.
I love how passionate he is about Maryland. I love that.
It's not a joke, man.
I know it's not. That was authentic, man. You can feel it. You can feel it with it.
I mean, that adds a layer usually of success. You know, people are more motivated, less likely to leave, more passionate about it. Look at the best basketball and football coaches in the past, maybe ever. Gary Williams and Ralph Friedgen, both alumni. So you got a little more skin in the game when it's, you know, it's in your heart.
There's something to it. I mean, when you are a non-rev coach, you are asked to do a lot of things. I mean, you are not getting the budgets that anybody else is. I mean, when he's talking about, you know, he played here when I went here. So you're talking 98 to 2002, 4 scholarships for the baseball program. I mean, how do you expect to compete like that? I mean, now they might have, 20? I mean, I know they're not fully funded, but so you're still having to dig around.
No one is in baseball, right? I don't think they're not allowed to fully fund. I think there's rules. They only have that many, right? The entire.
I know they're limited.
A budgetary thing than a rule, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how that works, but I know you it's almost impossible because of Title IX and all that stuff to fully fund all these teams. But
that's a big part of it too. I think as of a few years ago, I remember it was like half the team, maybe less on scholarships.
Yes. Or they put everybody on half scholarships as a way to I don't know. I don't know how they do it anymore, but it's really tough to do that job. So, you know, you almost need to have guys or girls who are really, really into doing the extracurricular stuff like that. Not to use this, you know, the Willard or the Turgeon, you know, complaints that they don't get to be home on Friday night for family Scrabble games. But it's kind of like that. You've got to always be out pounding the pavement, whether you're recruiting, you're fundraising, you're doing all this stuff. In their case, they're trying to get a new stadium or some sort of updates to the current stadium. It's a lot, man. So like you said, having somebody who really lives and breathes this stuff, it means so much. And if anybody's going to be able to help that program take the next step, it's going to be him.
It was really great stuff. Happy to have them, and hope everybody, like I said, you can follow them on Twitter, X, #Dirty Terps. I love that. I think it's a great marketing. I like the nickname. It's a cool thing that they're doing there with that.
Yeah, that's what the Friedgen era football team used as their nickname too. So it's got some history there.
Speaking of football, Jeff, is there anything you want to tell us about recruiting or coaching or anything
Really
going on?
news. Well, I guess have we been on since Brian Williams left? I don't think
No, we
we have.
haven't. We have not. That's the problem.
Yeah, that was big news. Obviously, defensive coordinator leaving at a time of year when guys don't typically leave a lot. My first thought, as I wrote, was that it must have been one of those scenarios where Mike Locksley wanted to move on and told the guy, like, go find another job. You know, he's always been very generous about that with coaches who he's letting go rather than just firing them summarily and letting them, you know, deal with it. And I thought that because he was going to, you know, Jacksonville State, which is not just a level below Maryland. You know, I would have said it if it was, you know, what's a mid-level, even a MAC school or whatever. But that's, you know, a lot of levels below. I don't think Mike Locksley let him go, though. I think he just decided he wanted to go, which, you know, is not the best reflection that you want to get on your program right now. So, you know, it'll be interesting.
There's kind of a history of that, right? With coaches.
There's a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
There's
Who was the Syracuse guy who came in for like 2 days and left? And
yeah, that was Scott
Kevin.
Well, it happened twice. Scott Schaefer, family thing, and that's why. And then the other one was Kevin Steele.
Yeah.
And then the offensive coordinator who signed went to Michigan. Everybody thought he was going to be, and then went to Michigan, and then came
Gaddis.
Yes, thank you. That too. Like, there's a whole history of these weird.
The offensive coordinator has turned over a lot, more than defensive coordinator. You know, the defense was very bad last year. I thought Brian Williams' first 2 years were pretty solid. They were putting up some of the best defensive numbers they've put up since joining the Big Ten. I mean, the defense had just every year pretty much been at the bottom of the league in most categories. He improved it. Then last year was a disaster. So who knows? Maybe it was a mutual, you know, we know very few decisions are actually mutual for people to part ways. But neither has come out and talked about it. And the bottom line is, you know, all that now he gets, but this time of year, you're not going to have like a huge crop of like really impressive candidates available. So he's going to have to, you know, unless he promotes Azar Abdul-Rahim, who was the co-defensive coordinator last year. Either way, excuse me, you still have another spot opened up, and that's always tough this time of year, but it's really tough when you're facing a year where you really have to turn things around. Like you know, between filling that and upgrading the roster still before next year, you know, he's going to have to stand on his head, and, you know, I'm sure he knows that. And it'd be interesting to see. I think they still need, there's 2 or 3 openings still on the staff now. Well, Kevin Sumlin hasn't officially left, but it sounds like that's a foregone conclusion. I think with that one, it'll be 3 vacancies unless I've lost count. The whole 2 offensive line coach thing threw off my math last year.
Well, we got some info from Aaron here about the scholarships baseball. Currently, it's 11.7. But starting in 25-26, they can award 34. Not that every institution will fully fund that. I'm sure there's going to be the SEC schools and
we're not doing that.
Southern ACC schools will do that, right? And some of the Big 12. But okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Can I? Football, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm a pretty well-known locks guy. But boy, this is bad. This is bad. We just need to be able to say that. Like, this is bad. The roster's bad. The coaching turnover is bad. I'm a little scared for my guy, man. I like him a lot. I want him to succeed here. I think he's the kind of guy who can succeed here. He has succeeded here by most objective standards other than last year. Whew, man, I don't know. I don't know what to think about this. I mean, obviously that one Florida kid decommitted when Williams left as well. That was a foregone conclusion, I think. Pretty much every early Florida commit that guy who commits to Maryland, you know, never signs anyway. But
I think his high school coach was Brian Williams' brother or cousin or something. There's a very close connection to that one.
Yeah, that either way, I felt like that was. I
mean, you could see a scenario next year where they win 3 games or 4 again, and the recruiting class takes off, people transfer, and
I'm worried.
yeah,
I'm worried. I feel
Me
like
too.
next year feels. And I know every Maryland offseason we almost feel this way, but like they've just got to find a way to get to 6. Like they just have to, and then hopefully you can start to enter the Malik Washington era. I think you're asking maybe a little too much for him to step up right away and start next year, but man,
sorry, good.
it's just hard to know how that's going to work out. It's a really scary scenario for me, and I say that as a Locks fan. So just want to get that on record.
Good news this week, though. They started setting up official visits for next summer. A lot of 2026 recruits have been posting graphics about visiting, including Emmanuel Iheanacho, 5-star offensive tackle from Georgetown Prep. I think he's the number 5 player in the country. You already have the number 2 player. We've discussed him before. And then several other really Jure Edwards from St. Francis, one of the top safeties in the country. So they've got some big names coming to visit this summer, and I wrote about it last week. He's pretty much trying to replicate the roadmap from last year when he built it all around Malik Washington, got that commitment, had all these other recruits visiting the same weekend as him. He always talks about peer validation, and it worked last year. So he's doing the same thing now, it looks like, with Zion Ely, this year's big commitment, and bringing in some of these guys on the same weekend in June for official visits, trying to get them to bond and see if it'll pay off in his second straight really good recruiting class. So there is
the recruiting feels great. It feels as great as it's been in quite some time. I mean, not just in terms of where the class ranks, but when you just kind of get a feel for how good these guys are, look at their offers, the real offers they get. I think the recruiting's in a great spot. I feel like Locks, for the most part, has been pretty successful in the portal, but you just worry whether you can get through one more bad season. I don't know that they can. So that's why you kind of got to just find a way to get to 500 into a bowl game, and you could still sell that kind of, we need you guys to come in and take the next step, because I worry if you throw up another 2, 3, 4 win stinker, it could just all fall apart on you.
Yes, but
biggest season for Maryland football in a long time. Most important.
I have maybe something positive to add. I went down the Justin Martin rabbit hole. I think I told you guys I did this with MJ Morris last year when he was coming in. I went down the Justin Martin rabbit hole. I watched the entire game, UCLA versus Penn State. Way more impressed with him than MJ Morris. I don't know if you guys remember last year, I watched all 4 of his games. I read the message boards, the whole thing, and I said, I don't know, man. He didn't really show much. I'm telling you, Justin Martin's a lot better. Justin Martin, he's going through progressions. He's got zip on his arm. He did not throw any deep balls, and maybe that's by design. Maybe it's because Penn State's pass rush is insane, and he had to get the ball out within a second every time. He ran a read option. He's he's tall, very tall, so he's not a short, shifty guy. He's not going to be doing Lamar Jackson type stuff, or Jaden Daniels type stuff. But he is fast. So when he pulls it, he was able to gain yardage with his speed. He's pretty good. I like it now. After I watched that, I read the message board. UCLA people were pissed that he was leaving, because they viewed him as the quarterback for the next 2 years, because there was so much potential with him and he looked so good in that game, and he did. So that's better than MJ. I will tell you that without question, and it's not close.
No, just got to be able to block for him if he does turn out that good.
Yeah. So, I mean, he wasn't whoever you want to say. He wasn't an All-American, but very good for like a first game, and he showed a lot of stuff. I'm way more bearish on him than I was on MJ Morris.
Okay. No, I'll take whatever good news I can get, and I'm a huge football guy. I'm a big Locks guy, and I want it to work. And And I just look at that roster, and I don't see
I
it.
agree.
I
I
don't see
agree.
it.
Even with that pause, it makes me feel a little better. But they need what?
Well,
we
a
don't
decent
talk about-
quarterback. I mean, a decent quarterback alone can get you to 5 or 6. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just the way football.
And I think he is
football is.
decent. I think he's good. I think he's pretty good. And he's rated higher than Billy Edwards in the transfer portal. And after I watched it, I was like, I can see it. I can see why. So
Yeah, well, but Billy got us to 4 last year, so
I know
there's your benchmark.
Well, they need more stuff in the spring transfer portal and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Do we know what Jeff? When does spring football start? Do you know exactly? Is that first or
the
second
date
weekend?
yesterday. It's like
First weekend of March,
20th,
maybe.
right around March 20th. I think I just saw that. Maybe the 13th. I just saw the date yesterday.
Okay, so a little bit later than they've been doing.
I'll tell you.
You're going to do that.
March. No. I'm sorry. March 25th. March 25th.
Okay, so they're starting late this year. That's all right.
We'll do that and maybe go to the spring game. That'd be a lot of fun. All right, we're going to do a non-res report from our boy Wheels. Here we go.
Hey everyone, this is Wheels with your Inside Maryland Sports non-revenue sports report. Everything's going on now in the non-rev world, so let's get it started. We'll start with golf. Men's team finished 9th out of 14 teams last week in a tournament down in Puerto Rico. The women finished middle of the pack in Florida this last weekend, and they traveled to Houston for a tournament this weekend. Tennis swept their weekend slate of 3 matches. They head to Princeton this weekend. Maybe they'll ride up with the men's lacrosse team. Gymnastics got a big win out in Seattle last weekend. They host Big Ten foe Iowa on Friday. Wrestling went from ranked and riding high and now looking to end a 5-match losing streak. They lost to Purdue last week. They travel up to Philly for a non-conference reprieve against Drexel. It's always a bloodbath in the Big Ten. This is their last final match of the regular season before they head into Big Ten tournament play. Baseball and softball in full swing, pardon the pun. Softball team went down to Austin for a tournament last week, which included a game against number 1 Texas. Unfortunately, they lost 4 or 5 games that they played against 3 different teams. They look to bounce back in the Carolina Classic this weekend. Baseball started out 2-1. They go to Western Carolina for a 3-game series this weekend. Finally, the lacrosse teams are both in action. The women got blown out by number 4 Syracuse at home. They bounced back yesterday on Tuesday with a big win against Georgetown. The men put an end to the perennial early season Syracuse hype train by easily handling the former second-ranked Orange 11-7 in College Park. Their reward for rising up to number 2 in the nation in the polls this week, they get to go on the road to number 5 Princeton, part of a gauntlet for the men's lacrosse program. And that's a wrap on your non-revenue sports report. Take care, everyone.
All right. Some good stuff, some not good stuff. I have, I have an either or for you guys. I'll read you a hypothetical. You have to say either or, and you have to pick one of them and expound upon it. We'll start with Jeff. Maryland men's basketball wins the Big Ten tournament and loses in the first round of the NCAA, or loses the first Big Ten tournament game but makes the Elite Eight.
Second one all day.
Even though you get a banner for the first one. That's the title.
But really, like, how much do you really remember? I mean, that one 2004, everybody remembers, but it was kind of a fluky, magical thing. Otherwise, I don't feel like people remember it nearly as much. It doesn't count. I mean, nobody has like fan debates like, oh, my team won it all this year. Oh, yeah, but we won the conference tournament. So I think it's a good memory and it would be cool to watch. But to me, any extra success in the NCAA tournament is worth several multiples of conference tournament wins.
Paul, before I give you yours, do you agree with that?
Maryland's been to like what 3 Elite Eights ever? Like you're taking the Elite Eight. You just have to.
Okay. I take Sweet 16 also in that scenario.
You take a Sweet 16 over a Big
I don't know about that. That might be where I'd change my mind. I'd take the banner over a Sweet 16. You don't hang a banner for a Sweet 16. You don't feel like that's a special season. That's honestly where Maryland should be just about every year.
Maryland's pretty special.
It shouldn't be, but yes, I understand the.
All right.
I'd probably take the banner on that one. That's where I think I disagree. But
we're gonna
that's understandable.
that's good hypo.
We're gonna dig deep into Paul's misogyny here. We're gonna see how deep it goes. The women's team.
That came out of nowhere.
The women's team.
What did I do to you, man? Jesus Christ.
No segue. There was zero segue before
The
that.
women's team.
Just saying, we're gonna talk about how much of a piece of crap Paul is. Let's count the waves.
He always shits on the women's team. Here we go. The women's team wins the national title, and the men make the round of 32. Or the women lose their first game, but the men make the Sweet 16.
So glad you didn't ask me that.
One extra game for the women's national title.
I'm just not a fan of the women's basketball program. I wish them all the luck in the world, but I don't care. If they won a national championship, be like, oh man, that's really great for them. Like, that's awesome. But like, I don't care. I'm not going to pretend. I'm not going to like have stolen valor and be like, I followed Brenda from the beginning. Like, I'm not that guy.
So
I'd be very happy for their fans.
16 and the women losing the first round over.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, plus they've got that player who's hurt, and they haven't been very good recently. So that might not be a unrealistic scenario.
All right.
Paul, Maryland goes on a 6-0 run to start the game against USC, or the women win the national title.
Yeah, let's see how exactly. Yeah, let's see how deep it goes.
That's too ridiculous. That's too ridiculous. Maryland can overcome a 6-0 run. That's no big deal. It's an Andy Enfield team. That doesn't count.
All right, Jeff. Rice, Gillespie, and Queen all stay next year, or your number of subscribers doubles next year.
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, first off, they would have to all stay for it to double next year, so I think they're mutually exclusive. But I'll say the first one just to make everybody happy, knowing.
But really, it's the second one.
Yeah, everybody would double their revenue over just about anything not involving like a family member.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be very cool if they all came back. That would be
yes.
The Queen's not coming back. I mean, it's just 1% chance, I'd say, but the other two, you get them back, you got a lot to build around.
Hey, Paul, Aaron in the chat says got to take the women natty. So there you go.
That's what Aaron has to do.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay. Okay. All right, Paul. The football team wins 6 or 7 games and their bowl game every year for the next 5 years, or they miss a bowl game entirely for 4 of the next 5 years, but the 1 year they make it, it's the college football playoff.
Man, now that's a tough one.
Jeff, you look confused?
I don't think it's tough. You take the CFP in a minute because that's such a rare accomplishment that might never happen in 50 years. Those years without the bowl game.
I gave this to Paul specifically, though, because he's regularly over and over said how happy and content he is with bowl games and solid seasons because he just enjoys the process.
Yeah, he's playing off my personal.
He's good, man. He's devious with this stuff.
That's a good one. I mean, I would probably take the playoff because Jeff is right. Maryland football is what they are, and a Maryland football team in the playoff would be insane. So,
hold on, Larry, clip that. Just the Jeff is right part. I need you to clip that. Let's.
I'll get you that.
I'm just taking L's all over the place tonight.
Okay, all right. I agree. I'd rather make the playoff once and miss 4 bowl games than win 5 bowl games with 6 or 7 win seasons.
Yeah, especially if I knew that was coming ahead of time, so I could plan for it. That'd be worth it.
Jeff, we've been trying to get players in the rafters on the show. There's a bunch we don't have. So your most preferred player in the rafters we haven't had on the show yet, Juan Dixon or Gravis Vasquez?
Probably Gravis. He's just, he's got such a great personality. And I mean, we could get Juan. We've never gotten Juan Dixon, have we?
No,
I
somehow.
tried. Listen, I talked to my boy Walt about it, and Walt tried for me. And it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm not that shocked by that, but I would say Gravis just personality-wise, but we do need to get Juan. I'll try to do some.
Got it. Juan he's the GOAT. Got it. I thought for sure you'd say Juan. Okay. Both would be great though. So let's make that happen. Okay. Paul, basketball or football?
That's it.
That's it.
Period. Football.
Yeah.
I'm a football guy.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to say, Jeff.
That's just it. Yeah.
Jeff, beer or liquor?
Liquor. I'm getting too old to just be like getting all bloated and having to go to the bathroom all night. Like, let's get that shit straight to the bloodstream and get the party going. You know, I rarely drink liquor these days. I'm just whatever. But well, it just depends on the setting, though, right? If you're just hanging out casually, you're not just going to be like slugging, crowning cokes. But to get the job done, I would say liquor.
I don't like beer at all, so that's an easy one for me. But for other people, it's a lot different.
Completely situational for me.
Yeah. Paul, last one, steakhouse or Spanish cuisine? Because I know what your favorite restaurant is. You told me.
Again, situational. But I do love me Spanish food. That's
Paleo. Paleo is your favorite. You told me.
It's my favorite, like regular kind of joint. Like I've been lucky enough to know a couple chefs there. We've been able to get the good treatment. So I love Spanish food, but God, I love a good steak too. I just feel like there's a better chance of me reproducing and conquering a good steak at home than trying to come up with a sweet, sweet Spanish dish on my own. So I'd probably go that way.
All right. That's it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I loved Matt Swope, Coach Matt Swope from the baseball team. Loved his passion. He bleeds Terp red. Love that. You can hear it in his voice. Everything he was
all
saying.
legit, man. There's nothing like fake about that guy. Like that's just who he is, and he will tell you what he needs and how he needs it. And I expect they're going to do big things with him. I mean, especially even on the behind the scenes stuff, like being able to raise some money and get people involved. I mean, they've been really good at being able to get kind of like students more involved with baseball too, not just being a little more successful, really being involved kind of in the way that the like the crew is with the football, with the soccer program and things like that. So really happy for him. Really excited for what they can pull off. I mean, the better all of Maryland's non-revs are, the better everything is. So,
and we'll post a link in the YouTube comments for their NIL donations if anyone wants to support.
Yep. And you can, like I said, there's the Dirty Terps hashtag Dirty Terps on X, and at Terps Baseball if you want to follow the team, and at I closed it at I closed it at
he closed it at something.
I closed it.
Search for Matt Swope.
Search for Maryland Baseball.
You'll find him on X.
Also, if you're around tomorrow night and Maryland pulls off the win that they should pull off, we have discussed maybe popping on here for a few minutes to talk about it, celebrate a little bit, take some chat questions. So keep an eye out. If we lose, I imagine we might not do that. But
we're not coming on if they lose.
Yeah, we're probably
not. They're not losing.
But
I don't think so.
They're not losing the game.
All right, you guys think I'm always too positive. USC is a bad team traveling across the country to play at a red hot Maryland. I feel like this could be like that Ohio State game.
If it was at USC, I'd be in on that, but they're not losing this game. Not to that team.
No, I'm saying the home Ohio State game.
Oh, okay. Yes.
It could be like it
could get very out of control. I think.
Yeah. So,
but
all right,
it's Maryland, and you know how they like to serve up some turd cupcakes every once in a while. So stay on the tip of your seats. You never know how it's going to go.
I think they're going to get the Ken Palm win, and they're going to move up a couple spots. All right, thank you, everybody. If you have not liked the show, please do that for us on YouTube, and if you haven't subscribed, please do that for us as well. We would very much appreciate it. We are hopefully going to be back tomorrow night after a Maryland victory. We'll make it widely known if that's going to happen, and we'll see you guys then. This is IMS Radio.